There are three types of people who show their true colors when they smell money: strangers, relatives, and your spouse. My mother died on a Monday. By Thursday, Jenna, my loving wife, suggested we give half of the $100 million inheritance to her father, a man who hasn't held a real job in a decade and thinks crypto is still short for cryptic. That's when I realized I wasn't just a new millionaire. I was the extra in my own marriage. The folder was still warm when I brought it home. The pages curled slightly at the edges, fresh ink clinging to the air. My name was printed in bold on the first page, sole heir to everything my mother left behind. Just under $100 million. Company shares, real estate, investment accounts, patent rights. A lifetime of work, condensed into a handful of documents. I wasn't even halfway through the third page when Jenna started talking. Not with emotion, not with hesitation. She said it like she was ordering dessert. We should give half to my dad. I looked up. She was sitting across from me, perfectly composed, her fingers gently tracing the rim of her wine glass. Every movement slow, controlled, rehearsed. For days. It had only been 4 days since the funeral. My mother's perfume still lingered in the guest room. Her reading glasses were still resting on the nightstand. And now, my wife wanted to hand over half of her legacy to a man who never once set foot in my mother's hospital room. I didn't answer, didn't ask why. I just sat there across the table, staring at the woman I married, and realizing that maybe I never really knew her at all. I wanted to believe it was just a momentary comment, a reflex, blurted out in the fog of emotion. Maybe she really did feel for her dad. Maybe loss makes us all cling to what's left. I tried to believe that, because it was far easier than admitting what my gut had started whispering, that the sentence had been rehearsed. The next morning, Jenna was up early. She made coffee the way I liked it. Black, no sugar, pressed manually instead of using the drip machine. 2 over-easy eggs and toast sat neatly on one of the porcelain plates my mom used to save for Sunday mornings. She didn't say much, just smiled softly as I sat down, like we were reconnecting after a fight we never had. I glanced at the table. A financial magazine was open beside my plate, headlined in bold. Legacy is more than money. How to share without breaking apart. She didn't mention it, but as we ate, her fingers casually tapped the edge of the page, a quiet rhythm that felt more like suggestion than habit. I didn't react. I wanted to believe it was a coincidence, but I knew Jenna. She never left anything on a table by accident. The next few days passed like a slow-motion film. No one brought up the split again, but its presence filled the quiet spaces. It was in the TV show she picked. The what would you do for family? Questions. The longer-than-usual glances she gave me across the dinner table, like she was gauging how far she could push. 3 nights later, I came home late. The light in my office was still on. My computer screen was locked, but the mouse was warm. A few folders were out of place. One envelope, thick gray, containing my mother's original will, was slightly off from where I'd left it. I remembered tucking it precisely inside the second drawer, aligned with the others. I checked for fingerprints, signs, anything obvious. Nothing, but I knew someone had opened it. That night over tea, I asked, "Were you in my office this afternoon?" Jenna shook her head, casually. "No. Why?" I nodded and smiled faintly. Must have been my memory. But later that night, just before bed, I mounted a mini camera above the bookshelf. Not because I was suspicious, because I was starting to be certain. Ever since I installed the camera, I started watching Jenna differently, not through the eyes of a husband trying to understand his wife, but more like an analyst studying unpredictable market behavior. Every small move, every glance, every shift in tone, I noted them all, not out of curiosity, out of the need to prove to myself that I wasn't inventing cracks that weren't there. That night, I rewatched the first clip. Jenna entered my office at 6:12 p.m. Golden hour sunlight spilled through the blinds. She wasn't sneaky. She wasn't rushed. She moved with purpose, calculated. Her fingers moved through files, lingered on the ones labeled will and power of attorney. She tapped lightly on one thick envelope, like she was weighing it. I turned off the video as she exited the frame. I didn't need to see more. The next day, she brought home a shirt. No reason, no occasion. She smiled and said, "I thought this color would look good on you." Pale green, the exact shade used in the branding of the bank where my mother held her long-term deposits. She didn't elaborate. I didn't ask, but I started writing things down. Dates, times, small gestures, odd phrasing. Things I normally wouldn't notice, now logged like data points in a system I couldn't yet decode. And then the coincidences started to stack. One evening, she opened YouTube on the TV and accidentally clicked into a video titled, "How to Persuade Loved Ones to Share Their Wealth Without Damaging the Relationship." She laughed awkwardly and backed out. Weird algorithm today. I smiled, but my grip on the coffee spoon tightened slightly. Another night, I went to grab water from the kitchen. She was on the phone, speaking low, controlled. I caught a few words. "If I'm careful, it'll be fine. I just need a little more time. You understand, right?" I stepped into the room. She looked up, slightly startled, but switched to a warm smile instantly. Just a work thing. I nodded. Later that night, I wrote down everything she said, from memory, no recording needed. Bit by bit, the question changed. It was no longer, is she hiding something? It became, how long has she been planning this? And once that question creeps in about the person who sleeps next to you every night, you stop seeing your life as a marriage. You see it as a chessboard. And I had just made my opening move. Ever since I started documenting everything, conversations with Jenna stopped feeling like dialogue. They became data. I wasn't listening as a husband. I was logging behavior like an investigator building a timeline. The way she rested her elbow on the chair, the pauses between her words, the casual hand on her glass. I stopped trying to understand her. I was verifying her. On a Thursday evening, I came home earlier than usual. A canceled meeting. The front door was slightly ajar. No lights were on in the living room, but a soft glow leaked from my office. She was in there, wearing a fitted white blouse, sitting slightly hunched over my desk, fully absorbed in my laptop. She hadn't heard me enter. I stood still in the hallway. I didn't call her name. I wanted to see what she did when she thought no one was watching. The screen was open to Gmail. The draft folder held a message titled, "Asset Transfer Proposal. Please have Dad review." I didn't see the full message. She clicked away within seconds, almost as if she felt my presence behind her. She turned and smiled. "You scared me." I gave a slight nod, stepped back once. "You're home early. Hungry?" I was just about to order sushi. I said nothing. Every social reflex in me had gone quiet, not out of anger, but grief. Some small part of me still wanted her to be innocent, but the facts had begun to speak for themselves. That night, she smiled more than usual. She talked about our early days, how we used to text all night while living in different states. She mentioned dishes my mother used to make, said she really missed her. I nodded, but while she talked, my eyes drifted toward her phone. A faint blue notification light blinked on. Facebook Messenger. When she walked to the kitchen to rinse her glass, I stepped closer. One preview line showed up. "We're good. He still doesn't know I got in." I didn't need the rest. The next morning, I requested an emergency meeting with my attorney. No email. I showed up in person, hard drive in hand, documents under my arm, and one question. If she's actively working with someone else, specifically her father, what's the legal boundary I can push before this turns into a war I lose? That night, Jenna walked into my study with 2 cups of tea. She wore the gray sweater I once told her brought out her eyes. A soft smile, her head tilted slightly, just the way that used to melt me. She placed one cup on the table, then sat in the chair across from me, hands clasped on her lap like she was about to say something important, but gentle. I was thinking maybe we should get away. Just the two of us. Vermont, maybe the old cabin your mom used to love. I didn't react. No nod, no shake. She continued, slowly, her voice calm and warm like a voiceover from a commercial. Slow enough to build trust, not too slow to lose control. I had heard this scene already, in my head, many times. She had written this script long before stepping into the room. I opened the drawer, pulled out a manila envelope I had prepared earlier, and placed it on the table. She looked at it, then looked at me, didn't ask, just touched the edge, quietly opened it. Inside were copies of text messages, access logs, camera screenshots, a few audio clips, a chat message. It's fine. He doesn't know I got in. She didn't read it all. She didn't need to. Just folded it back, set it down, and sat up a little straighter. You spied on me? Her voice wasn't loud, but tight as a drawn string. I protected my mother, I said, and what she left behind. She took a deep breath, weighing her options. I braced for anger. What came instead was disdain. She tilted her head, lips pressed like she pitted me. You think you're the only one who's ever lost a mother? You don't get to act like you're the only victim in this house. I stood steady. I'm not hoarding. I'm protecting. That's the difference. You always think you're better than everyone else, just like your mom did. In that moment, I knew she was done pretending. No more masks. I spoke slowly, almost to myself. You have three choices. We hire a mediator, we get lawyers, or you walk out of this house and never come back. She looked at me, those perfect eyes, dry, sharp. Then she stood up. No words. No slamming doors. Just a woman walking away from a chess game she thought she controlled. I locked the door, deleted her fingerprints from the system, and texted my lawyer 2 words. Start it. After that night, the house was quiet in a new way. No more footsteps across the wooden floor. No more cups of tea made and left to go cold on the table. But more than anything, no more silent doubt gnawing at every breath I took. I woke up early and walked around the neighborhood. March wind still bit at my face, but for the first time in weeks, I could feel my heartbeat, not from anxiety, but from life. That I woke up early and walked around the neighborhood. March wind still bit at my face, but for the first time in weeks, I could feel my heartbeat, not from anxiety, but from life. My lawyer called at 9 a.m., asking if I wanted to proceed with contested or uncontested divorce. I said contested, but I left a small opening, not because I was soft, but because I understood the true victor is the one who doesn't need to crush the other side to protect their dignity. For 3 days, Jenna didn't reach out, but her father did. One single email, cold, polite, with the subject line, regarding the share we believe we deserve. I forwarded it to my lawyer with a short note. Handle it by the book. I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. Those emotions had been drained long before. Now, I was running on something different. Clarity. I began reorganizing the house. I packed her things carefully, boxed them, placed them in storage, and locked them away. I didn't seek revenge. I simply closed the door. One night, I found an old voice memo my mother had left, a scratchy recording, her voice echoing in the quiet kitchen. If one day you don't know who to trust, start by trusting yourself. Time will take care of the rest. I sat still, didn't cry, just closed my eyes and listened. I no longer hated Jenna. I didn't need to justify her anymore. What she did was her choice. What I did was my response. In a world where everyone wears masks, I chose to take off mine first. And strangely, I didn't feel shame. I felt relief. A week later, I signed the papers. My signature was firm. The lawyer looked at me and asked, "No second thoughts?" I shook my head. I lost my mother. I almost lost myself. I won't lose my self-respect too. The documents were filed that morning, and as I walked out of the office, the sunlight broke through the clouds, not blinding, just enough to let me know I'd finally stepped out of the wrong dream and back into the truth. After that night, the silence in the house changed. It wasn't just the absence of her footsteps on the wooden floors, or the missing cup of tea that used to sit cooling on the table. It was the absence of that quiet, corrosive doubt that had been eating away at every breath I took. 3 days passed. No calls, no texts. Then came the email, simple subject line. "Let's meet. Just us." We met at a quiet cafe on Chestnut Street. She wore white, of course she did, hair curled softly, eyes light, voice gentler than I remembered. She reached for my hand across the table and smiled. "I've thought it over," she said. "I think 80/20 is fair. For everything." I didn't blink. I simply slid the envelope across the table, carefully sealed, with her name handwritten in black ink. "What's this?" she asked. "Just some paperwork," I said. She opened it with one hand, glanced through the first page, then the second. Her fingers paused, eyes narrowed. Page 3 there was in bold. "By signing this agreement, the undersigned fully and permanently waives all financial claims against the estate of Margaret Ellison, including any portion thereof, with the exception of a symbolic sum of $1,000 US. She didn't finish reading. She didn't have to. Her hands trembled. Her lips parted like she was about to speak. Then nothing. "You didn't read carefully," I said quietly. "You just saw the number, just like always." She stood up, staggered half a step back. Color drained from her face like someone had pulled the plug. I thought she might scream, but no. She dropped the papers on the table like they were burning her, turned, and walked straight out the door, into the rain without her coat. 2 hours later, I got a call. From the hospital. She collapsed from shock. Nothing life-threatening, they said, but something in her cracked that wouldn't mend with time. Later that night, another email arrived from her father, blaming me, accusing me, and in the last line, begging because his own empire had just crumbled under bad loans and worse investments. The 80/20 was never just for her. It was their final escape plan. I leaned back, watching the cursor blink on his message. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened a folder on my desktop labeled Closure and dragged the email inside. I didn't win. I just survived. And in a world full of people who only see zeros, I gave them exactly what they deserved. A 1 followed by 3. $1,000. She thought she was signing for her share of the $100 million. What she didn't know was that she just signed away everything for exactly $1,000. No more. No second chance. If you ever had to choose between love and self-respect, you know how hard it is to walk away. But sometimes, walking away is the most powerful thing you can do. Leave a comment and share your thoughts. Have you ever trusted someone who didn't deserve it? If this story resonated with you, please like the video and subscribe for more true stories that hit close to home. Thanks for being here. Take care of yourself. You matter more than any fortune.